Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome to today's AFK journey video. So in today's AFK journey video, we're going to kick off the account review series with one of my viewers' account, right, known as Swordsman. So thank you very much for lending me your account. Initially, the plan for this video was to do 3 different account reviews, but I realized that running through all the things that my viewer wants me to talk about took quite a bit for the very first one. So I'm just going to release it with one account first and then subsequently try to cover all the other accounts who have sent me their accounts for sharing to run through their account details and stuff. So for Swordsman, he shared me his account right here, and he wanted me to cover 2 different aspects of his account: how to min-max for his dream realm, as well as how to improve his PvP runs itself. So in today's video, this will be the main topic of conversation, and without further ado, let us start today's video. So I'll start with the very first account here, which is Swordsman's account. Okay, 488 billion power, server 74, so one of the earlier servers. Based on our conversation, he wants me to talk about how to improve his Dream Realm team as well as his PvP team from his current roster. So before we start, we have to confirm where he's at in terms of progression. So I think he's pretty much done with the story, right? Done with Song of Strife. So he is probably in the end game, right, for Dream Realm Endless mode, as well as pretty much the end game for his arena side. For his Supreme Arena, I also try to help him optimize some of the teams and then try to help him win 1 rank from here. So since these are his concerns in terms of Dream Realm and PvP, that's what I'm gonna do. So for his account, let's run through the units first. Generally, at the first glance, he has most of the important units. He's probably a light mid spender in the game with a lot of Supreme Plus, but no Paragon yet. Roughly around 600 levels in terms of his overall Resonance Synergy level, and he has quite a few Celestial Hypogean units. Like he has Kalita at Supreme Plus, Fresto at Mythic, Reina at Mythic Plus, as well as Talin at Legendary Plus. Okay, that's one thing which I don't really like to see. Like I always tell people to sort of focus on units all the way to Supreme Plus, especially for all these late game-ish Supreme Plus Celestial Hypogean characters. Their true power usually comes at their EX weapon skill, and more specifically, especially for Fresto and Talin, they are more late game centric in terms of doing what they need to do. Although Talin can function at the earlier tier, but his Fresto is, I'll say, relatively wasted in a sense. I think his Fresto would be key in improving his endgame Dream Realm damage, because Fresto is meta in a lot of the endgame Dream Realm teams, where Talin is only meta in 2 or 3. So generally, I think if you're talking about Dream Realm side, I think focusing on Fresto will be the way to go, at least for his account, because he has the ability to bring up multiple Celestial Hypogean units. And in terms of the arena side, he does have a really powerful defense team, which is the Iron Kalita team that I can see. And yeah, Iron, Arden, Carolina, Kalita, they are basically like the meta teams right now. And but the thing is, for PvP side, we gotta see how his bracket plays out before giving out our suggestions. So I'll go into his arena, just briefly take a glance at the opponent, his top 10. So let's take a look at the opponent. So right here, there's this guy that's Paragon 2, Paragon 1. By the way, one thing I would like to point out is honestly speaking, right, you can actually defeat Paragon players if you have the units, if you have the correct investments. And you know, don't be too afraid to try, because for example, even for him, right, he's rank 8, the difference is very big. Let's just check whether or not he can attack the first guy, because there are, I'll say, like there are different rules in the different servers that I can't attack. Okay, I think the first guy is possible. So let's take a look at his attack and defense first. So he defended 2 out of 3 attempts from the enemies. So he was already running his Iron teams already, and then this guy was running a more divine centric team, so it's a lot more stats. And then his attack is that he attacked the first guy and then Fawny. Okay, so I will try to attack these 2 guys and see whether or not there's actually a way for him to win. So he did try to bring them down, but I think his attacking was not really strong. So let's take a look at Urza Scarlet first. With regards to this, right, I think this map is relatively difficult for him. Actually not that difficult, because he can actually swap out. Yeah, actually we can abuse Reina for this. So what we can do is, this map is, I mean, these units, they are pretty vulnerable to our dear Reina swap. Do I want to deal with Vala, which I think could be the biggest problem? I think I'll deal with Vala first, and then yeah, I think Vala is actually more troublesome. And let's see, how about this? Yeah, okay, so his team doesn't have a lot of synergy, but has a lot of stats because it's 800,000 versus 900,000. But he's missing quite a bit of factional bonus, and Vala is very strong, but we can easily try to bring her down with this setup first, which is using Rainer Sword with Enlightening Spell, because Vala is not actually that tanky. So if you're able to snipe her down even if she's Paragon 2, then it will make things a lot easier. With regards to the other units, I think what I'll do is I will actually put Iron here so that he will only pull the left hand side, and we'll just give this a try and see whether or not it works. So the opponent team doesn't have a lot of sustain, so if we do burst him down, then we should be able to beat him from there, even though he has 2 tiers ahead of us. In terms of the PvP side of things, the max, I'll say, okay, you can actually do it even if you have a 2-tier deficit, but it's just got to be way more challenging, right, in terms of taking on stronger players. It's not impossible, it's just not easy. So that's one thing that you guys need to know. So right here, as you guys can see, he doesn't have a lot of heal, so the confining spell actually kicked in, but because our Arden over here has the the quick enlightening spell, so here, right, we did pretty well. So we managed to actually did enough damage for Skalita to descend to defeat the very first guy. Very nice, 19 points. So let's try again and see whether or not he was just lucky, or whether or not this is one comp that he can use for attack, at least against Mr. Urza Scarlet over here. So let's do it again. So against his opponent's team, they are not actually playing any form of sustain. So to be really honest, you don't actually have to focus too much on lasting against your enemy, because their job is to burst you down, at least mostly with Vala comps. And because for his team's case, I'll say because he has a lot of stats, so they will actually put a weaker defense so that they can try different stuff most of the time. It's hard to say, but it's just one thing which I noticed from some of the stronger players out there. And because he's using confining spell, so confining spell is pretty much countered by enlightening, because enlightening will make sure that one of your units will not get affected by confining, at least within that first 20 seconds when the buff is active. So I think this team is definitely a solid team that he can run against the enemy, because the enemy doesn't have a lot of sustain. So all he got to do is do as much damage as possible before his Skalita descend to actually send the enemies to the Shadow Realm. So yeah, this is one opponent which he wasn't able to defeat. And if you're watching this video, Swordsman, this is one team you can use to fight your enemies from there. So the reason why a lot of people are using map 3 for defense is because map 3 is the only map where you cannot abuse Rainer. So abusing Rainer for attack is quite important, and this is one way you can abuse Rainer for your team. And this team itself, the team that we are running against Urza right there, had quite a bit of stats in a sense, because we are just running 2 Wilders with 2 Celestial Hypogenes, so we have a 4-1. So even though we are weaker in terms of the Paragon tiers versus Supreme Plus, but we have a little bit more percentage of stats, which help us sort of cover up the gap from there. So that's for the offensive side, and I'm going to leave the remaining offense to him, so hopefully he sees this video and then he work on his offense. Now for the Dream Realm side, in terms of his general ranking, let's just take a look at his damage. So 33 billion, 30 billion, okay, 34 billion. So it's in the 30 plus billion range, where his ranking is always top 20 is his server, and then about 80 plus to 100 plus for the district side of things. So let's take a look at his most optimal team for Alpha Bear. So for Alpha Bear's case, okay, one thing which I think he can do for himself is to use a higher tier unit. I always mention higher tier, because higher tier is tankier, higher tier is able to do more damage, and then like he does have a very good Skalita, and Skalita is decently good against Alpha Bear. So if I were him, I would definitely use Skalita. But then this actually has another issue. He doesn't really have a frontline unit to stand against the boss, right? Because we took out his Lucius. But the thing is, because we already have Skalita for the Heart of Unity, I'll say either put Torrent right into the team, I think, okay, putting Torrent and linking to Reina is probably one way, because I think Torrent is a very, very powerful unit that just does a lot for the team right now and can protect your units to ensure your survival. But his Torrent is actually lower in terms of EX weapon, and this will give him lesser stats. So I guess what we shall do is this. Hold on, should I send in the Torrent? Should I send? Okay, let's take a look at what he can use in terms of his recommended with his strongest units. So right now there's actually quite a good feature which is recommended formation. So right here he has I'll just put some of his strongest units in to see what we can form with him, because his OD is very stacked up. It's an EX15, which is quite a massive boost to his stats, and he has EX20, so there's quite a lot of stats there. So then we have Smokey as well, so that is the 3 unit. And then I think one unit that he kind of forgot is Coco. So then you have 4 units, and then I think if that's the case, right, we can just use Corinne for additional sustain for his team. So let's take a look at what's some of the damage range he could try. So this 560, 30 million. Okay, so let's filter away Corinne, for example, and then we try to use Torrent. How about that? Let's see what Torrent does. So over here, as you guys can see, Torrent actually, but this is higher level. So these are the few team recommendations that he can use. What about Merrily? Okay, there's no Merrily. How about without OD and then Merrily and Coco? Okay, so as you guys can see, this team actually gave a lot better damage in terms of the numbers, although some of these units are relatively high level. So what we're going to do is we're going to adopt these teams that the people are using, and we are going to take out Lucius, because I think Lucius kind of falls off in the late game because he doesn't do enough damage. So right here, okay, how do people actually position for the other people? So we're just gonna refer to the formation and then do a quick search. Okay, right here, Merrily and Coco. So we filter. Okay, so let's take a look at the formation. So they are sending in, okay, they are not sending in anyone. Scarletta in the front, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we'll give this a try. One thing that I have doubts is because we are not sending any units in, we might be losing quite a bit in terms of the earthquake that the boss is gonna do. But yeah, we just gotta give it a try and see how it turns out for him. Okay, so just run through this for him. Go at 3 times. Okay, just to quickly finish the battle and see the final damage distribution. One thing that I probably could have done was to optimize his levels to give the maximum levels to all the important units like Merrily as well as Corinne, so that they can survive better or hit a little bit harder. But we shall see how this damage turns out. Is it better than his current team? So Lucius, I think, is more of an early game unit right now for Song of Strife. So he doesn't really scale that well into the late game, although he's a pretty decent shielder. So a good alternative if you do have Coco. But if you have Coco with EX weapon like he does, then using Coco to replace the Lucius slot should be a lot better. And even for the Heart of Unity buff, even if it's a really, really good buff itself, right, his Lucius is way lower stated compared to his Scarletta. So his Scarletta would be more optimal to be used. And right here, we boosted his rank slightly to 34 million damage, 34 bill damage. So yeah, this is probably the better team for him. And moving forward to optimize his account, I'll say try to use usually your strongest units to min-max on your teams. And if your team is actually really good and complete like his, like you have all the important stuff upgraded, then you try to use obviously the meta units that were described in my meta team videos itself. So that's for the Dream Realm side of things. Not gonna share. We're gonna go into the Supreme Arena and see whether or not we can bump up his rank. So for Supreme Arena itself, in terms of okay, wait, before we talk about Supreme Arena, let's talk about the defense for his arena. So for the defense of his arena, I think this is pretty much the standard defensive comp that you can amass. I think what is better should be this way. Yeah, so this is probably the better defensive cycle for him. For Supreme Arena side, I'm not gonna grade his Supreme Arena teams because I think Supreme Arena defense, I think, is quite a unique case of explanation, because against different types of players, against different enemies that you're playing against, they might have a different investments in units. So you yourself know who they play the most or who is their strongest units. Then placing your formation and then countering them would be the more important part. So let's just do a continuation and see whether or not we can help him climb into top 50, right? Because right now his ranking is 51 to 100, so top 50 will give him a little bit more stuff. So let's try to squeeze in. So we are very lucky to get rank 47. So let's just give it a try and break the guy from the offensive side of things. So when we take a look at this guy, he has a Hewin, he has a Arden, and he has a Damien. There's a very high chance that Iron is inside the cloud. There's also a very high chance that it could be just a Wildest team. And we take a look at team 3, right? Team 3 over here has his Mauler, so Shakir, Odie, Smokey, as well as Rowan. I don't know his collection, but this is a very Mauler-centric team. And then, if that's the case, if his Wilder is in the first team, his Mauler is in the third team, then his second team should be Gravebonds, right? Should be Light Bearers. So what I'm gonna do, at least for this side, we're gonna go Mauler to counter the 2 or 3 Mauler units here. So for his case, actually it's quite easy because he has quite a well invested account where he has a lot of different units. So here we're going to use Coco, and right here we're going to put Anthendra in, and we're going to put Odie all the way at the back. So what we are going to do is put all the units at the top together, and then let Odie go ham at the back line. Okay, so let's do this, and let's do Cascade spell so that Coco can activate her ultimate as fast as possible. Against this team itself, I will use Light Bearer to just deal with the Coco. Okay, and in terms of the front lines, okay, so his tank side, he has both Tamasia and the Who, but Odie is going to be quite an issue for him if he doesn't address Odie. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take out Torrent to just put Torrent here, and then let's see. Okay, I can actually put the Who here, and I can actually. Okay, I think I'm gonna use Cecil because Cecil can control the backline, stop the channeling, very good stuff, and then we can have additional summons to actually block out the OD from being the carry. And then since that's the case, we're just gonna fill up with our deal Rowan to just speed through the cycle. And this unit over here, what I will do is I'll use Tamasia right here to charge up her stuff. So for this team, I'll be using Evocation spell to accelerate everything. And then for this team, because he has a very completed Arden Iron team, I'm just gonna use that. And then I'm gonna, okay, he has a very strong Skalita, which I really want to use. But the thing is, like, this team is very stacked up. So let's see where I can remove his units. Okay, let's do this. We are going to check out his, I think his Brutus is quite weak in terms of stats. So yeah, his Brutus is not even Supreme Plus. So we are gonna use Anthendra, and then we are gonna put in his Galita over here so that it provides that additional stats. And then for this one, what I'll do, right, is I'm gonna put Hugh in here because for this team itself, I think it doesn't have much of a problem to deal damage. So I think the sustain portion is probably something that I want to look at. So let's just continue and fight this battle itself. Okay, so in general, I think for his account, it's quite developed. I don't have a lot of difficulties forming the teams, at least from the Supreme Arena side of things. And then his opponent, yes, they are actually pretty strong. They have Paragon 1, Paragon 2, but I think it's possible to overcome the hurdle. It's possible to actually beat them, because 1 or 2 tier, if you know the correct strategy to deal with the different teams, I think it's possible. And because he does have a really good collection of unit, it is definitely achievable. So first team, as we guessed out, is the Wildest team. So using Mauler to just full counter the Wilder is definitely the right choice. So first victory done. Okay, second team is a mix between Graveborn as well as Lightbearer. He's gonna get destroyed by us because basically the Graveborn just get destroyed and dumped on, and then left with the Lightbearer side. Okay, Lightbearer and Graveborn is, I think, quite anti-synergistic now, because a lot of the good Graveborn units, they are mage based. So physical side, is a lot stronger, and the good combos are Rowan and Cecile, which we are really using right here. So that's why we don't have, like, I don't think the mage side of Light Barrier is that strong for you to group them with Carolina, at least right now. Cassidy is okay, but Cassidy is just not very good for Arena. So right here we get a 3-0 victory, and he managed to go up by 30 plus overall rank all the way to 47. So hopefully he can keep his ranking, right? And yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for this account review, at least from the focus that he wants to talk about. So personally, in terms of his account progression side, what I will do is for him, or suggest him to do, is to focus on his Celestial unit, which is Freyasto, to the highest tier, because Freyasto can do a lot at the highest tier compared to Talin, or rather both of them can do a lot, but I think Freyasto just does the late game job that he wants to do a lot better. So this is definitely one unit he wants to push. With regards to every other unit, I think in general the only other unit worth investing for his account right now at the end game state is actually Almas, as well as Elsa, because he does have the Iron team ready. So you can definitely do the Iron Burst teams to strengthen his arena, as well as his Supreme Arena teams itself. So those are the few things I can think of. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. So I do have quite a few other accounts who wants me to review them, so I'll probably cover them first in the future, and then open applications to more other account reviews, right? If you guys are interested in this type of content, let me know down in the comment section below what are the other review things that you guys want me to talk about in future account reviews, as well as what are the different account types that you guys might want me to cover, right? A free-to-play account, a heavy spender account, a Kraken's account, or just my friend Watt's account, which I've been using for my content itself. So that's it. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.